back to order, please.
What's the change?
If everyone will stand for our invocation. Let us pray. Gracious Father, we thank you for this day. Again, for the time that we can spend to help our community to be a better way of living. We thank you for those people who are here to weigh in on the interest of their concerns and their comments tonight. We bless our conversation in this meeting and be with us, and it's your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Remain standing as we pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Gentlemen, you've had a chance to see the agenda. Are there any outside additions or deletions or changes? I would like to make one to start with. You've been given the support for the school bond that has been placed in consent. I would ask that go under number 6 for consent agenda. We'll allow that. And I think there's been a request to remove number 4 back to a business item for discussion. Is that right, Mr. Harris? So yeah. We'll ask that be changed to be pulled out for a business item.
And in conversation with Councilman Williams, he'd like number 5 to be also moved out under business items.
Okay, we'll pull out number 5, 4 and 5 to go under business from the consent. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other changes or deletions? If not, with those amendments, I'll entertain a motion that we accept our agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Our first presentation tonight would be Chief. We'll bring you up forward if you'd like and recognize one of our faithful good employees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ask Sergeant David Tyndall if you'd step up here, please. We have a presentation this evening, Sergeant Tyndall, who has met the necessary criteria to receive his advanced certificate from the Training and Standards Commission of North Carolina. Sergeant Tyndall receives this after completing several thresholds. He joins 13 other members in our department that have received this award. It's about 35% of our agency. In order to achieve this award, he had to complete over 960 hours of training that is approved by the Training and Standards Commission and also approved by myself. He also had to put in 12 years of law enforcement experience as well in order to qualify for the award. The award then goes in front of the Training and Standards Commission, and you see the signatures of all the commission members on here who have to approve this award for him. The League of Cities also looks very positively on this award. The more people we have that receives this award, it actually positively affects our liability insurance rating because they believe that people are more professional and are less apt to make mistakes out in the field after receiving these types of certifications. Sergeant Tyndall is a huge asset to our agency. He's a sergeant of B Team Patrol Operations. His lieutenant sitting over here, Lieutenant West. These two gentlemen have done an outstanding job working with a lot of very young police officers that we have hired recently to keep our city safe. And I would ask you to thank Sergeant Tyndall with a good round of applause for this achievement.
Congratulations, Sergeant Tyndall. We appreciate your dedication and hard work and support of the town. good standard for the rest of the 70% chief to follow, so keep it up. Thank you for your efforts as well and leadership. Our second presentation will be from Mr. Worsham for the Appearance Commission. Bobby?
I think all of you guys have this in your packet. So rather than taking up a lot of time, I just want to say that the Appearance Commission did have a successful year again. We had 16 projects that we completed this year, and 7 of them I would just like to highlight this year. First is the 70 East Business Beautification Project that we worked with the Chamber of Commerce to enhance the beautification between the underpass and the College Road. We also redid all of the landscaping here at Town Hall, and we think it looks a whole lot better. The Donate a Tree program is working along. To date, we have received 104 donations from this project, and 92 trees have been planted in town. I don't see Lenny in here, but there's going to be another 15 in the next couple of weeks that are planted along Brogdon Road. So that program is continuing to be good. We received some funds from the North Carolina Community Foundation dedicated to our cemeteries. So we enhanced Oakland Cemetery this year and improved that cemetery's appearance by putting in some new gravel along the pathways as well as a flagpole. We enhanced the 70 West and 210 enhancement island out in front of the JCS maintenance facility. Looks much better, and we worked with Earl on getting the new lighting for the new bridge. We also assisted the Triple S History Department that was working on historical markers in town. If anybody has ever seen them, they're really nice. They've got a QR barcode on it and a video will pop up to give you the history on that. And we're working with them again this year. They've given us a list of 6 more they want to do in town. I would like to just point out some thank yous. Thanks, number 1, to Lenny and Dennis Littleton from the Public Works Department, because we could not do without those guys. They have just been super. Councilman Harris, thank you for your help on our committee. And Shannon, of course, helping us, keeping us straight on what the support and advice and admin support and web support. Paul and Brent Reck have been great on keeping us in line with the regulations. And of course, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, as well as the council, thanks for all of your support. And also to WTSB, who has given us free airtime for our Donate a Tree program, so we certainly appreciate that. Going into next year, I won't be redundant or anything, but it's on the last page, showing the plan of work. And these are the things we would like to do. We know it's more than the money that we have, so we will do and prioritize these projects until the money runs out. So I'm here for any questions that you guys may have.
Any questions for Mr. Worsham? Probably just a comment from the council, and I'm sure from me directly. Everything looks wonderful. You guys are doing a great job. I remember when this committee was non-existent and then very stagnant, was not working, and that's not the case now.
Daniel, thank you.
Communities are better for it. I do personally think.
I'll take that to the commission. Thank you very much.
Please do. Thank you very much.
Bobby, just one question. I echo the exact same thing the mayor said, Bobby. Your leadership is outstanding, and your committee deserves a big thank you. But just one question on the 70 East improvements. The sign that's out there listing all, I guess maybe USDA, whatever it is out there, does that have to stay up a certain amount of time, or can that come down? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Right there. And that may be something for...
Birds handicapped.
Right. There's, the sign has been, I mean, it's been up for
6 or 8 months.
longer than
maybe
that, probably a year. That may be more of a question for Paul Embler, Paul, to you.
That's a community appearance sign. We generally, through the chamber and other organizations, allow them to move the sign from time to time. It's not a permitted sign, but it is an allowed sign, so it's probably time to rotate it out.
Okay. Just,
We'll take care of it.
okay. Thank you very much.
I've got a question for the manager. Is anything, where are we on those damaged light poles standards at 2nd Street and Market? That one and the one at 3rd Street and Market's damaged also. Is anything being done
On
about
the
those
repair?
replacements?
Yes, Mr. Earl. Any word on that yet?
And we'll talk after the meeting.
Do we have to bear the expense of that, or people that damage them, do we know who damaged them?
I don't,
I'm not even familiar with that, Mr. Austin. I'll check with you after the meeting.
You familiar with the one that's got the guy wire holding it up though, aren't you?
The traffic light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I
about
don't know what the status of it is, but that's, some of that's wrong with the state.
it? I hope that does.
no, sir, we'll check and follow up, see if there's a pending claim or where that is. Just those two?
The only two I've seen,
Okay.
yeah.
Question, Mr. Worsham. Is there any plans in any improvement on that signage? Welcome to the town of Smithfield, right there by Pine Acres subdivision, that entranceway. Is any plans for
There
that?
is a activity that's getting ready to be formed to look at all signs within Smithfield. There's a group that wants us to look at what's called wayfinding. They think that we have a lot of sign clutter in town, and if you especially ride down Business 70, there's probably 500 signs along that road just within our city limits, and it will include the Welcome to Smithfield. The commission wants to replace all of them to one standard design. If you'll look at them in all of our entrances, they're all different. So that doesn't give us a very good impression, not having one that is one nice design in all entrances. So that's on the agenda as well.
Thank you.
Bobby, I'm particularly pleased to see that there's some movement on that 70 West improvement project that we discussed not too long ago, and I want to thank Paul Embler for recently contacting me and letting us know that he is in the throes of meeting with the DOT about that improvement, which will be from the bridge up to McDonald's in West Smithfield. It's a much needed area for improvement, and I'm very, very pleased that the DOT has expressed interest in working with the town, and thank you, Paul. I appreciate you doing that.
It'll help a great deal. It'll help a great deal. If you guys don't know, what we're proposing to the DOT is that road has been neglected for a long time, and a lot of the problems exist because there's not forced driveways along there. So Paul has drawn plans that are going to be presented to DOT, and that will allow us to be able to plant trees and plantings underneath there in between those forced driveways, and it'll help the improvement tremendously. So that's, I think within the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to meet with DOT.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Okay, we'll move into public hearings. Our first public hearing for tonight is annexation 1201. Petitioners are requesting voluntary non-contiguous annexation of approximately 18.94 acres of land into the town of Smithfield corporate limits. The properties considered for approval are located on the north side of Mallard Road, approximately 2,200 feet northeast of its intersection with Brogdon Road, and further identified as the portions of Johnston County Tax ID 15K11019F and 15K11019D. Mr. Embler, I recognize you. First of all, we'll need a motion to public hearing.
I move we open public hearing. Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Anyone wishing to be heard in this public hearing on this matter, please stand and face the clerk for swearing in at this time, if you wish to be heard.
Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth?
Mr. Ember, does Mr. Marshall need to be sworn? Just to verify any facts in the record, or?
If he wishes to speak, he needs to be, if
I think for the
there's any
record,
questions.
he probably ought to be sworn just in case as a factual matter, he can verify what's in the record. If that's all right, clerk, if you can swear in Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Marshall, if you'll, just to certify that what you've petitioned is correct, if you'll just stand and be sworn for the clerk, if you don't mind, just right there where you are and just face the clerk, that will be fine.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Emmer.
The applicants are requesting town services to include electrical, fire, police services at the location of the proposed ESA renewable solar farm. In order for the project to attain these town services, town policy requires voluntary non-contiguous annexation into the corporate limits of the town of Smithfield. The Town Council at its August 6, 2013 meeting unanimously passed a resolution directing the clerk to investigate for sufficiency the petition received under the general statutes for the voluntary non-contiguous annexation of the Marshall properties. The Town Council at its September the 3rd meeting accepted the findings of the clerk's investigation of sufficiency of the petition and unanimously passed a resolution fixing the date of the public hearing for today, October the 1st, on the question of annexation pursuant to the general statutes for the voluntary non-contiguous annexation. The Town Council is now requested to conduct a public hearing on the petition for the voluntary non-contiguous annexation by the general statutes and adopt an ordinance for the annexation. And in your packet, you have a copy of the notice that appeared in the paper. You have the ordinance number 475 to incorporate the area into the corporate town limits. And you also have the resolution in your packet with that. I also submit to you this additional information for your consideration because this, in order to qualify for a satellite annexation, which this is often referred to, it has to meet certain criteria. And that is that the site cannot be closer to another municipality's corporate limits than Smithfield. The location of the property is within 5,000 feet of the town limits of Smithfield. It is 14,000 feet from the primary corporate limits of Four Oaks and 16,000 feet from the primary corporate limits of Selma. The town will provide police, fire protection as well as electric for the property. Water and sewer are available in the area, both provided by the county. The area of the primary corporate limits as it presently exists in the town of Smithfield is 7,435 acres. This addition to the satellite annexation area will bring the total annexed satellite area to 182.31 acres, or 2.4% of the primary corporate limits. General statutes limit satellite annexations to a maximum of 10%. So it meets that criteria. The actual area taken into the corporate limits will be raise the annexed area from 2.2% to 2.4%. So with that, I stand open for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Ember?
Mr. Ember, I've asked this at the last couple of meetings when this has come up, and I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask it again, but the ordinance says that the town will be able to provide the same services within the proposed satellite corporate limits that it provides within the primary corporate limits. And then also it says further that the property shall be entitled to the same privileges and benefits. I just want to make sure that there's nothing that we're not informed about that could come back and be required for this property that be undue burden on the taxpayers to provide, such as running water lines or anything like that.
No, sir. At any time in the future, any other development that would require particularly water and sewer for the development would be on the back of the developer of the property and not on the town. We're not in the water and sewer business of providing that.
So we're good. We're not going to...
That is correct. We have an agreement with Johnston County to be able to tie to their water and sewer lines in the area in the future. If there was a need for water and sewer, there's a pre-existing agreement in place with the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Marshall, based on what you've heard, Mr. Marshall, can you hear me okay? Based on what you've heard, is there anything you need to add, or is that accurate?
Not as I understand what's been said.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Does anyone else wish to be heard on this public hearing? Now would be the time to speak. If not, I'll have a motion, entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, gentlemen, we're asked to act in adopting this ordinance is found on page 21. The ordinance number 475 to extend the corporate limits of the town to this location. Do I have a motion that we adopt this ordinance?
Make a motion that we adopt that ordinance. Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Our second public hearing is RZ 1304 Family Media Group LLC. The applicant is seeking to rezone a 4.02 acre tract of land from the R20A, which is Residential Agricultural Zoning District, to the O&I Office Institutional Zoning District. The property considered for the rezoning is located at the east side of Buffalo Road, approximately 385 feet south of its intersection with the Parkway Drive, and further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 140-75035. We have a motion that we open this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Anyone wishing to speak in this public hearing, if you will, at this time, please stand and face the clerk to be sworn in, to be heard tonight. Madam Clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay. Mr. Dembler, I'll recognize you for presentation.
Let me reference you onto the map, the location. Don't know how well this is going to show up. This is Buffalo Road. The middle school is right here. This is Bradford Park subdivision, Parkway Drive. This is Cobblestone Court behind the property. Station, the building is right here. The tower to the station is here.
So that's the radio station property, current radio station property?
Yes. The property is located on the east side of Buffalo Road, approximately 385 feet south of the intersection of Parkway Drive. The applicant is seeking to rezone a 4.02 acre tract of land from the current zoning of R28, residential agricultural, to the zoning district for office and institutional zoning. Might I add, this would place the rezoning and within the zoning would be proper for the use, which is office and institutional. The radio station, I believe, was built in 1940. It's been in operation since that time. At that time, there was no zoning, so the property has been in a office and institutional use for all these years, and this is actually bringing the property within compliance. The property considered for rezoning does not appear to contain any environmentally sensitive areas. The property to the north is R10 residential, to the south is R28 residential, to the east is R10, and to the west is R28. Staff's analysis states that the property considered for rezoning contains an existing radio station with associated parking lot. Rezoning of the property to O&I will not create a nonconformity since the radio stations are permitted in use within the requested district. The zoning map amended will serve the property by allowing for a wider range of office uses to be permitted at the site. This is consistent with the town's strategic growth plan. It is also consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance, and it is reasonable compatibility with the adjacent areas. As you're well aware, schools, parks, churches, banks are all office and institutional use, which is pretty much predominantly in that area, and also office and institutional use is the preferred buffer between single-family residential and higher uses like business. Fire protection and utilities in the area are provided by the town of Smithfield. The electrical service out there is Progress Energy in some of the area, and some of it is town of Smithfield. In connection with the legislative decision for a zoning request, the planning board may consider, or the town council may consider, certain approval criteria, and in your packet you have a packet that talks about approved criteria. If you would, please take that into consideration when you deliberate your decision. And the planning staff generally accepts these findings, in fact, as part of the complete application submitted by the petitioners. The planning board recommendation, it was submitted to the planning board. At the time your packet was sent out, the planning board, we had the staggered schedule last month, so it wasn't initially in the packet, but they approved the recommendation for rezoning. Further in the packet, I'm sorry, I don't have the page number, it's the approval criteria.
81.
It's on page 81. You have the approval criteria. You will find that there are, the findings are there, and if you go through each of those findings, or you can do them collectively and take those into consideration in your deliberation and decision. With that, I stand open for questions.
Any questions of Mr. Embler at this time? Paul, just one general question of O&I use. Is that conducive? You mentioned already, I just want to reiterate to that plan of use in that area. In other words, no impact negatively to the neighborhood that's there adjacent to it.
Office and institutional, based on our comprehensive plan, is an allowable use within that area. It also, office and institutional use is a desirable buffer between a residential area and a commercial area. As that area grows out there, we would anticipate, particularly closer to the intersection, it becoming a more commercial use. So this would be providing that an additional buffer around the residential neighborhood there that will be long-term.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Embler? If not, anybody else wishing to be heard in this public hearing, now will be the time to come forward and speak. Mr. Emmett, if you'll come over, please, and speak.
Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council, my name is Will Hennett. I live at 105 Parkway Drive, which is across the street from the radio tower. I have lived there for about 25 years. The radio tower has been an excellent neighbor for me. Kept the grass cut, quiet neighbors, have never had any problem from it. I would like to see the property to have as good of owners in the future. The property, as you can see on this map, goes very deep into our neighborhood. It goes back approximately 400 feet. It aligns itself with Cobblestone and Parkway Drive. There are residential properties all around it. I'm not here today because I'm opposed to the rezoning. I just want you to be sensitive to our needs as well. That whatever happens to the property, that it will not negatively impact our neighborhood. Right along the highway, this building looks like a brick house. What will it look like 5 years from now? Will it be a parking lot? Will it be a two-story building? Will it be a metal building? Will it come back into our property 400 feet? These are all questions that I don't know, and I hope before that you approve or disapprove this motion, that you will find out as much about the property as you can. Like I said, in the past, currently they have been excellent neighbors. I hope that they will continue to be excellent neighbors, and that it will not negatively impact our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard? Ms. Carroll? Just for the record, Linda, if you'll state your name and address for the clerk.
My name is Linda Carroll, and I am the general manager of 1270 WMPM. Do you want my address?
That's fine.
Okay.
We know how to find you.
Okay. I am one of the 3 owners of WMPM. It's myself, 1/3 owner. My father, Carl Lamb, is 1/3 owner, and my brother is 1/3 owner. He is here tonight, Mickey Lamb. I've been the general manager since 2009 of 1270 WMPM. We have changed the format of that station to an all-Christian station now. We have all Christian ministries, all Christian programming, and that's when I came, and that's kind of the direction that we're headed. If Mr. Hennett had been at our previous meeting with the planning board, he would have heard that what has happened out there is that when I came to that place in 2009, it's an old building. It's been there. You've heard how long it's been there. I think it was originally a house, and then it was bought and turned into a radio station. But it was in disarray. It had a lot of work that needed to be done. And that was underneath the crawl space area and inside, and so we brought it up to a good place, a good standard, and we have 4 extra offices in the back of the building that are totally unused. We only have 3 staff there, 3 people that are on staff, and so we have plenty of extra office space that we would like to rent out in the back portion of the building, separate entrance, and all of that. However, we can't rent it as it stands, is the way it's zoned. So I came downtown and talked to Mark here about it in the office here at Town Hall, and he said, you know, you can't rent it because of the way it's zoned. So that started a long process of this. So we don't have any plans to add on or do anything to the tower field or change anything up. I would really hope and pray that sometime in the future that perhaps an insurance agent or a Christian counseling service or a realtor or somebody might like a quiet office space that they could rent in the back of our building. And that's what we're doing, is we're trying to get rezoned to have an office and institutional. That's the purpose of it. We're not going to change the structure or add on to the structure or make it a metal building or increase parking, etc. We just want to be able to use the existing space that we have that's unused.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Carroll? Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, wait, I do have a question. Linda, I know right in the back, in the bigger portion of the track, is a tower.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I meant to address that. Sometimes I've had questions about the tower before. We are, of course, we have to follow all kinds of FCC rules and regulations, and we have to keep that tower checked. We have to keep the lights on it checked. We have to keep the paint on it checked. There's a lot of rules and regulations that we have to follow, standards and guidelines. And we have 2 tower companies that we currently work with, and all of that. So we're inspecting it, and we are working with those 2 companies. So all of that is in line.
Is there also like a fall area where you cannot build any additional structure within the fall area of the tower?
My brother could speak to that. I don't know about the fall area. Do you know about the fall area?
That may not be the right terminology, but Mickey.
Based on the grounding system of the AM tower, after the tower signal, the AM is in the ground for wiring, there is no way to do anything within the circular area where the guy wires are. That is unbuildable, and it's actually anything other than a riding lawnmower is not supposed to even be on that at our engineer's request.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. it has to stay kind of the way it is as long as there's a tower there.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Langdon to come up and just make a brief statement about some of the work that he's done there on site, what we've done for improvements. Any more questions for me?
No, I think that's good. Mac, if you would as well, name and location, please, I appreciate it.
My name is Mac Langdon. I'm the owner of Wood Turbine and Pest Control Company. Linda and her family contracted to do the things that needed to be done to that crawl space you mentioned. It was certainly a challenge. As a matter of fact, during the course of the several weeks that we worked on the crawl space, getting it to a point that it could be dried out and made put in a condition so that the air coming through the crawl space into the the living area of the office was made more pure. We put in 2 sump pumps, a dehumidifier, French drains outside, French drains inside. We hauled in gravel, dirt, took up flooring in order to access the area, put in a 10 and 20 mil thick liner on the walls and on the floor, and put in a humidistat with an alarm that would alarm both when if the sump pumps were not working or if the humidity in the crawl space exceeds 60% or whatever the setting is. And so it was quite an undertaking for us, and it was quite an investment for Linda and her family. And but it has it has put the building back in a situation so that there's much more life left in the building for several years to come. There's one comment I've got to make about the crawl space. Our guys, our employees, during that course of the construction, we ended up with about 3 benefit cases out of it. It was a very challenging job. And one of the comments that was made by one of our guys is, that it is a Christian crawl space, but a Christian radio station, but the crawl space was from somewhere else. But now the crawl space is consistent with what goes on there. So, to maybe allay the fears of some of the property owners there, I would like to say that Linda and I and others that are associated with that project, are property owners as well. We're very sensitive to what impact, changes that take place in the community have on property values, and so we're very sensitive to that. I can just say that Linda is and her family, as you all know, have been a part of this community for a long time, and I'm certain that we're all after the same thing, and that's to improve the town of Smithfield and Johnston County.
Thank you, Mike. Any more questions, comments? Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, Will.
In light of what Ms. Carroll said here tonight, I have no objection to them, at least in their current space. And I think also what they said about not being able to build any power, I did not know that, so I have no objection.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to be heard? If not, we'll close this public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay. Motion is second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? Gentlemen, you see the findings of facts. We can do it all in one, or we can take them independently, whichever you prefer.
I move that we collectively find letter A, agree on all findings of fact numbered 1 through 8.
Second. Motion is second that we collectively findings of fact or to approve. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? That being said, to record the decision based on these motions, that do I have a motion that we proceed forward with this rezoning?
I'll make a motion that we proceed forward.
Second. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now that you've got a pure foundation, Ms. Carroll, you can move forward with your Christian radio station. Okay, thank you, folks. Okay, we have time now for citizens' comments. If there's anyone wish to be heard at this particular time, now is the time to come forward.
Can I speak on behalf of one of our citizens who is not here right now?
Yep.
The clerk gave to you prior to the meeting a packet from Healing, let me get it right here, from Helping and Healing Hearts Incorporated, which is an organization that's operated on North 4th Street, and that's done by a lady by the name of Rachel Ayers. And she has done an amazing job in a little over a year up there. She has started a soup kitchen. She has cleaned up a number of properties. She has convinced owners to let her use the properties to help people. In addition to feeding people, we have traditionally in the past had a property up there. It was 5 apartment units in a concrete block building that were to the rear of some of those houses up there. If you didn't see them, you wouldn't know that it was there, but it has been a continuing problem for the police department over the years. She has convinced the property owner to let her take the lease of the property, and she is now bringing in disabled veterans and housing them. She also has an arrangement with the community college to house professors or teachers that come in to teach special courses so they might have somewhere to stay. And the lady is an amazing individual. Some of you may well know her son. His name was Larry Smith. He was a graduate of Triple West High School, a very outstanding guy, even though he did go to Carolina. And he played basketball for Dean Smith for a number of years over there. It's outstanding family. What she is requesting is to celebrate the success that they've had this year. And she would like to have a Unity Fest, Holy Fest at the on North 4th Street between Wellens and I'm forgetting the name of the street. I mean Caswell and Hancock. Thank you. And what it would do is, in your packet, you have a little map that shows the closing. And just to show you what kind of lady she is, she's already gone out and asked all the affected property owners, of which you have a letter that's signed there by those property owners, and they're delineated on the map. You also have a copy of a temporary use permit. She was not able to get it here to you in time to get it on the agenda before, but she would like for you to take it into consideration. So on her behalf, I would like you to take it into consideration, if you so see fit, to grant on October the 26th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for her to have her celebration.
I have a question, Mr. Emler. No, more so for the police chief. How's the crime in that particular area now since she has set up that establishment?
The area on the north side right there is Russian.
Thank you.
When streets are closed for events like this, does the town provide barricades, or is just designated closed, or?
Normally, Lee's group will put barricades up to close the street at the intersections, and we just block off the street, and then at the end of the celebration, the barricades are removed and traffic flow will again go.
Okay, this is not an agenda item, but council can make an exception and allow this if you so choose. So you hear the request on behalf of the petition.
I move that we honor the request.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll
thank you
pass
very
that on. Okay, we're going to anyone else on the citizens' comments before I move forward? Okay. We'll move under the consent agenda. Do I have a motion that we have 1, 2, 3, and the one that I suggested, adding the school board bond, to be approved under consent agenda? And we're taking out items 4 and 5 for business.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll move to business items, special event. First one is, we'll add 4 and 5 to the end of the business. The first one is from Mr. Barnes on behalf of the Sedan Shriners petitioning the town to conduct a parade that will follow the same route as the Christmas parade. The parade is part of the 2014 fall ceremonial of the Sedan Shriners, which will be held in Smithfield on the weekend of November 15th, 2014. Approximately 400 to 500 Shriners and their families will be here in attendance. And Mr. Ember, I'll recognize you. I see Mr. Barnes is here as well if he'd like to come forward and make a comment. But Mr. Ember, at this time.
This event was held in Smithfield my first or second year here. We have a number of Shriners that come here, and they have a parade. All their units are present, the animated animals, the precision drill units. They bring in about 40 to 50 units, I think, that will be here. So you're looking at a parade that's probably the magnitude of the Christmas parade. They will set up a viewing stand on Market Street, and they'll take the same route as the parade route for the Christmas parade, is what their intent is, with the viewing stand being located in the vicinity of the parking lot beside the Wells Fargo building, in that general vicinity there. That would be coordinated with the police department as well as Public Works of the actual closing for those. They will come in, mobilize in the morning on that Saturday morning. They will conduct the parade, and then they will clean up, break down, and they'll be gone by that afternoon. The reason why it's here well ahead of time, if you notice, this is November of 2014, is that they need to inform all their shrine clubs in eastern North Carolina of the event. They have to get the advertisement out, they have to coordinate it, and an event of this magnitude takes a year or so to plan out. So Mr. Barnes is here to answer any questions you might have, and if I can answer any, I'll be happy to.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Ember? This event was here several years ago, as Mr. Ember alluded to. It does bring a good number of people here in Smithfield, and it's a positive thing. Mr. Barnes has been working on this for quite some time. He's talked to me 2 or 3 times about it, and it's a very good event. Mr. Crawford, you have a comment?
Well, I don't know that it's a question, more of a concern, given the date is November the 15th. I mean, that's going to be, assuming we have a Christmas parade in 2014, we'll have a parade within 2 to 3 weeks of each other, won't we?
Tim, what date is the Christmas parade? It's around the 15th of 12th or 15th? Second Thursday. 2 to 3 weeks. So we have about a month in between them, yes.
Okay. That's enough recovery time.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Barnes, you wish to be heard any at all, or what you've heard is?
I just appreciate the interest in the chairman. I was chairman in 2004. This area and all the people in town. We have our people are really looking forward to coming back. So we vote for it, we will do that, and we would like to do the parade in Smithfield, which is tradition.
What says the council?
I want to say a little something about the Shriners. I'm not a Shriner. Shriners, most of you probably already know, but their primary purpose is raising money for children's hospitals. And I think it should be an honor that we have them here in Smithfield. I think the approximate number of Shriners could well exceed 400 to 500. I think we should approve this with open arms, and I make a motion that we approve this and we do it at no charge to the Shriners because they are raising money for children's hospitals. I don't think we should charge them for a parade. I don't have a problem with keeping the registration fee, but my motion is that we approve this request and do it with no charge to them for the costs associated with the city for the parade.
I'll second that. Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just, I support it, but just discussion. As far as the figure that I saw in there for the charge, can I ask the police chief just to elaborate on that a bit as far as police coverage?
Since this is the same route as the Christmas parade, we estimate the same amount of manpower to close the streets. We need an officer at every intersection. We need to move the traffic down Bridge Street all the way up to 7th Street and then cut back onto Market Street. So we have truck traffic there as well. I estimate we'll need about 20 officers to direct the traffic at 2 hours per officer. And then we also allowed, that would be the $1,200 that's in there. If we want to have additional officers to just rove the parade route, which is what we usually do, it's a Christmas parade just for security purposes, make sure kids aren't running out in the street. There's no problems there. I estimated an additional 3 officers for that at 2 hours apiece. And that's at about $30 an hour.
So, about 23 officers. Is that what you estimate? Okay. Thank you. Sure.
Was that a part of the request that the town cover the cost of the?
When I petitioned this past week, I made the petition request, and then I became aware, or made aware, that there would be a security charge for the police. And so I have asked for a waiver. And reason being that, not saying that no one has ever done it in other areas, but historically, I've not had experience with encountering that type of charge. So that's, I was asking for some help in that respect. I do not have a line item budget necessarily for that. I had security provided by the sheriff last time with our dances and some outside events. So, you know, I've actually gone out and gotten security, we didn't have any charge there. But we did have a charge of that nature last time.
Any other questions on the board? We have for discussion. We have a motion and a second on the table. No further discussion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that motion was to waive the fees associated with the parade. Okay. Mr. Barnes, we thank you. We look forward to it.
Thank you, sir. And I can safely say, especially the day of that parade, that number will go up.
I'm sure.
That's a very conservative number, because it's just about that many actually putting the parade on.
It was a very good event last time, and we appreciate the Shriners and what they do.
We certainly appreciate your consideration.
Mayor,
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir.
All right.
He's there.
Was this on consent?
Okay. Okay, business item number 2, consideration to approve the agreement with the News Charter School to provide a SRO service. Chief Scott?
Mayor, while Chief Scott's making his way forward, the materials in the packet on page 111, this is going to be a very similar arrangement as we have with the community college in terms of the resource officers and also the schools, the middle school and high school in Smithfield. The contract is almost identical to those. In fact, that was the model used. We changed some of the language there. And I think the charter school had an additional phrase they had to have added to it, which was really not meaningful, just something I have to have for their budget purposes.
It covers their grant.
But I just want to let you know it is something we've done in the past. I will say, before the chief gets into more detail with it, you know, the good thing about these resource officer contracts is that, or arrangements, is that, you know, obviously another person's paying the salary and benefits for the police officer, but we do pick up a new police officer, and we do get them back for times here and there, a month and a half during the year where the full salary is basically funded. So we do get a little bit of beneficial use, and it's funded at another entity's expense, and so that is something of a benefit that is good for us. There are some costs that are inherent. We try and recognize all those in the contract. Chief?
I will point out that Principal Irby is here also from the News Charter School. I believe he's a high school principal. If you have any questions for him. I think this is a good arrangement. It's been a great arrangement for the middle school, where we've had a school resource officer there since 2007. I think if you talk to anyone at the middle school, they'll tell you it's been very beneficial for them, and it's been beneficial for us, because as things occur in that area, whether it's disturbances or small criminal behaviors or even traffic direction, we're not having to put people out there off the patrol shift to do those jobs. That school resource officer can take care of them. I don't need to mention anything about some of the tragedies that we've seen around the country in some of the schools and areas no bigger than ours. And I can tell you that just about anyone, including the IACP, is very much supportive of putting police officers in the schools as school resource officers to help with that type of security. So bringing that level of security here, especially as the News Charter School is building a new project, new school, 3 floors, I think getting in at the beginning of that is a great partnership for the police department and the News Charter School.
You've heard the request. Any questions?
I just want to say I was out there yesterday at the groundbreaking for their new facility, and one of the things that I didn't know, because I haven't been involved with the charter school, is that they currently have 700 students out there. I was somewhat surprised. I should have known it. I got some grandkids that go out there, and those kids are from all walks of life all over Johnson County, and I see no reason why we would not approve this.
Is that in the form of a motion?
I just got a question for Principal Irby.
Not yet. I mean, no, you go ahead.
Oh.
I don't have a motion yet.
Okay. I'm just, as far as the funding for this position, where do the actual funds come from? Because given the light of our current situation with our federal government, should the state government back out and have some issues, I would like to know that these funds are definitely appropriated and are secured for the position.
Yes, sir. Right now, the state just allowed a new grant program, a $2 to $1 initiative that we were able to apply for. The funds will come out of half of the funds will come out of our initial budget that we have. The other half will come out of the state funding that was allotted for grants. And so that's generally how we would pay for the SRO office.
And the grant has been...
I sent the grant in. I wrote the grant about 4 weeks ago. We haven't gotten an answer back from it yet, but it has been recognized, and it should go through.
Obviously, I support this as well, but I would highly recommend any motions be subject to the approval of the grant, or secured funds from the school, obviously before we're making any hiring decisions.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Well, before we go in that regard, I'm not sure. I've heard a little bit about the grant principle. Is that, my understanding was that it may not be awarded for several months, though. Is that the case? Do you know?
They said it could be awarded this month, actually in October, November, that's what I heard. So the deadline to apply for it was at the end of September.
Okay. I guess the issue we got to decide is if you want the officer to start before the grant's awarded, not knowing it for sure, which we would be okay with, but that motion would change that. We could not apply. I mean, this contract, in no regard, it's not based on a grant. It says the charter school owes us this money when you sign it and for the officer. So I think they stand behind it. The grant will help pay them for it, but they will still owe us. And I'm just worried if there is a delay, we might not be able to put the officer out there. And I want to make sure that if that's the intent and that's your intent, but it's, I was under the impression that you guys wanted them there tomorrow at like 12 noon, basically, or as soon as possible.
We would pay for it.
Okay.
We would have that covered. The reason why I say the grant is because that's what brought about this whole.
Okay, and that's fine. Bob, if you're okay with that as far as the contract, I'm fine. I don't care where the money comes from as far as we're covered.
That's not our issue.
Yeah, we're not under any obligation to furnish them an officer.
Sure. Yeah, we are.
Scott, no.
If he goes out there and starts tomorrow, yeah, we are.
Well, I think what I heard was that, regardless whether they get the grant or not, they're going to.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
But before that, that was not on the table. So that's what I wanted to make sure.
So this would be contractual between us and the charter school, so actually the funding for him is not our issue.
Right.
So we could go straight with the motion to approve.
Yeah, all we're doing is being asked to approve a budget amendment which shows revenues as well as appropriation. So we don't have one without the other.
There you go. But if you have someone start tomorrow, we're supplying a uniform, a gun, a car, plus retirement. And retirement is not covered in this, is that correct? Or is retirement also included in these funds?
It's a $48,000 figure, and the backfill officer would be about $34,000 in salary, so it should cover the benefits.
Okay, that's good. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the request.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item number 3, consideration of the approval of budget amendment that would transfer funds from the insurance proceeds line item to the drug forfeiture line item to the police department's capital expenditure line item and authorize the replacement and purchase of a new police squad car. Chief Scott?
You have the information in your packet. Unfortunately, this comes on the heels of an accident which created this situation. We have a accident involving one of our officers. It does not appear to be the other person's fault. We did have an insurance settlement. Our car was totaled out. We received a little over $20,000 from the insurance settlement. That money is now sitting in the insurance proceeds line item. We're asking to replace that car so that we can purchase a new car. The bid that you have in your packet from Butler is in South Carolina, but they are actually the North Carolina state bid winner. They have vehicles sitting on their lot now, so we can pick one up immediately without having to order it and build it and get it here in several months. The difference between what the insurance proceeds would be and the purchase of the new car and putting the equipment back in the new car would be money that would be coming out of our forfeiture designated funds, so it wouldn't be tax money, so that we can replace that vehicle.
Okay. Any questions of the chief?
I don't have any questions for the chief. I have some comments. I contacted the city manager and asked some questions about this, and I just want to, I don't know if you guys saw the email about some questions I had on the police cars, but you know, we had some questions about the number of police cars in the past, but and I want the people to know here also that in all, and I'm going to repeat something that Chief Scott wrote to me, 7 vehicles were sold in 2013, and 4 police vehicles were declared surplus and sold in 2012. There's been a total of 12 vehicles removed from the police department's inventory. 3 marked squad cars were also turned into unmarked vehicles. So some of the comments I hear in town about the police force having too many vehicles, there may have been a perception in the past, but the other thing that I want to mention is based on what I see, Chief Scott, there's currently about 16 cars that are actually being used for patrol. And at one time, we had 5 cars patrolling, I don't know if we're in the 4 to 5 range right now, but I want the public to know that we're probably at a bare minimum, and maybe below a minimum, but given our financial situation, I commend Chief Scott on the job he's done to alleviate that situation. And there's other cars, 3 are assigned to school resource officers. So when you see a police car going around town, it doesn't necessarily mean we got too many police cars, because this also doesn't include the detective divisions and some of the other needed vehicles. So I want to commend you for your efforts, and hopefully when we get our finances in better shape, we'll be able to support you better. But I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll be glad to entertain
I
a
move we
motion.
approve the request.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Chief? All right, item 4 will be consideration to approve certification pay increases for 2 police officers. Recognize the manager and Chief Scott additional. Chief, while you're there. Hello?
Yeah, let me find it here. Got out of killing. Okay. This is an interesting situation. The career ladder is very important to the police department. It's something that's been in effect since before I arrived here, and it is a career track for all of our officers. So in order for them to continue to move up in their careers, they need to move through the career ladder. You saw Sergeant Tyndall here and Lieutenant West here earlier, Lieutenant Powell's out here now. They could not have became lieutenants or sergeants without going through the career ladder first. So we need to keep that moving forward and appoint these people as they've earned that recognition, so that the timelines meet what we need them to meet when we want to promote to sergeants and lieutenants. As an example, a police officer 2 you have to be a police officer 2 for 2 years before you can even apply for a sergeant's opening if it opens up. So if we put these off, then these officers are sitting there in limbo, and they're going to miss an opportunity to be able to apply for a sergeant's position because they weren't a PO2 long enough. So we have 2 officers here that have done the necessary criteria to move up and to be promoted into a PO2 and a master patrol officer. You have in front of you the impacts on the current budget as well as future budgets for that. We lost 5 officers this year so far. 2 of those people were supervisors, and before they were supervisors, they were master patrol officers. We replaced those 2 sergeants' positions with people that were master patrol officers. So in the hierarchy of things, we actually have 2 master patrol officer vacancies. The person that is moving into a master patrol officer is a PO2, and he moves up, we'll have a PO2 vacancy. So we're actually just filling vacancies as we move along. If you need the information on the career ladder, I can provide that. As far as what they have to achieve in order to move up. All those things have already been certified, however, both by my office and by Tim Kerrigan, the Human Resource Director.
Any questions of the Chief?
Yes, Chief, just to confirm, as you proposed to the council here, you said this promotion would not impact your budget whatsoever, correct?
It can
Without
be
any
absorbed in
amendments?
the present budget, yes.
Okay.
I'm not asking for any budget amendment, nor will I be for salaries for these promotions.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do I entertain a motion?
I make a motion to approve this request.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5, update to the council on the sludge issue, Mr. Manager and Mr. Botkin.
Mayor, again, before we get to this item, Mayor, I think you wanted me to remind you to, we had a break, you might want to introduce our finance director.
Yes, while they're getting settled in this item, we want to welcome Greg Seiler as our new finance director here. He's come on board a couple days now, I guess. And we've already fed him with a banquet, so he's going to be around for a while. We appreciate your coming to us and look forward to a good relationship with you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
If you haven't met him already, I think Tim carried him around to introduce you. Make yourself available to him and let him shake your hand and welcome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Earl.
Mayor, just as an introduction, I think you've seen the memo, and I've reported on this a couple times in the weekly report, and I'm going to let Mr. Bodkin go through the detail, but I wanted to just give you the broad picture very, very briefly, which is essentially we've got a problem in the water treatment plant with two things. One is our water quality is fine. That is not a problem. Okay, our water quality meets all state requirements. That's not a problem at all. So I want to make sure that's clear for all those sitting on the front row, particularly, that there's no problem with that at all, and the second row. The issue was raised with when we transfer and sell water to the county, it's further down the line a bit, and I'm going to just put it in layman's terms. They have two transfer points, and when the water is transferred there, it's further down the line, and the county contract calls for a higher than the state required standard for this byproduct that can be found in the water. They have a higher standard in their contract. I think, as I understand that reason, is because when they transfer the water, they send it miles and miles down their system, and this byproduct can get worse the longer it goes down the line, the longer it is in the line, to simplify it, and that's probably oversimplifying it. So they had a slightly higher standard. In the past, there wasn't as much testing on the county side. They have, to their credit, started testing a lot more rigorously on those transfer points and other points in their own system. And there's some increased state requirements that just went into effect this fall. We're still meeting all those requirements. But with the new testing by the county, which really started in August, or came to our attention in early August this year, our transfer of that water was not meeting the county's requirements for that transfer for this byproduct that's found in the water. So they have the option under that contract not to accept or buy the water unless it meets that standard. And give or take, that's what they're doing, although we think we've got it under control now. The solution to getting that water to that higher standard to meet the county, right now the short-term solution is to really add a different chemical and more of that chemical to the water. This different chemical is a little bit more expensive than our usual alum chemical that we use and have used for years and years to treat our water, but the real kicker is that you have to use 3 to 4 times as much of that chemical, and so the cost goes up considerably. So the issue is, one, getting that water, that chemical treatment, so it removes that byproduct from the water so we can sell it to the county, and also it'll help our system down the road possibly, because that byproduct that's in the water really comes from the natural organic chemistry of the water we take from the river. So it's a good problem to address and fix. The downside is that the chemical is more expensive, and the other downside, and this is kind of part 2 of the issue, is this treatment causes a larger amount of production of sludge, just a natural byproduct of the treatment of water. The chemical, the alum we use now, produces an amount that we can typically handle in-house with our own treatment. But with the new chemical, we feel pretty certain we will not be able to handle, it'll produce 3 to 4 times as much sludge. We will not be able to handle it in our own basins without significant improvements or additions to those basins, which would be very costly. Most jurisdictions who have water that are treating it under a similar situation, that pull it from a river, treat it with this different chemical, and that's what they do. And to add to the cost, they also haul and have third parties remove their sludge to an organic treatment, typically a land farm that they sell or produce to another user, that they spread out the sludge on the land where it becomes part of the soil, kind of a fertilizer type use. We don't have a place we can do that in-house on the land. A third party does that, and the cost is significant. Earl's going to break that down a little bit better scientific manner for you, but I wanted to break it down and say the problem is the treatment with the chemical, the increased amount of sludge, and then the handling of that sludge. And it all adds up to, and this is probably a high amount, but around $330,000 to $340,000 increased cost per year for our water system. That's a significant cost. It will help us with our county contract. Of course, our county contract revenue is already budgeted amount. We would hate to lose that, and we think that that's a substantial amount of revenue, over $600,000 that comes in, so that helps a good bit. Of course, we're already getting that now, or were up until recently, so we'd like to reestablish that revenue stream. but this would be a new cost, at least in the short term. Moving forward, we'd like to look at other possible treatment scenarios, but right now it looks like that's going to be probably the most, or really the only treatment scenario that we're going to have. There are some other ones we're exploring. We're going to get some help from Wooten, the same company who's helping us with our intake system. We're dealing with the sand, completely, entirely separate problem, and they're going to look at some solutions for this sludge issue and see if we can't be creative or find a way to help treat that. So Earl, if I hadn't confused them too much, maybe you can fill them in with the other details.
They just stole my thunder, but it's good. The basic issue here really is what's referred to as a stage 2 disinfection byproduct rule that EPA has mandated. It takes effect this month, and basically what it does is change the way that we do our sampling, or at least how our sampling is counted. Historically, I mean pre-October of this year, we've had various sites within the system, and all those sites, when they were tested quarterly, all those levels were grouped together and averaged out. So if you had a high level here and a low level there, they sort of averaged out, which was good. But now with the new regulations, stage 2 regulations, every site has to stand on its own. So if you have a high site here and a low site here, the site that matters is that high site. So most water purveyors, including us in Johnson County, we're all nervous about this new regulation. We don't really know how it's going to affect us because it's new. It hasn't been mandated. We don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. So that being said, that is the county's major concern right now.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. When did the county stop buying water from us?
August, I think it's August 6th. And that's whenever they discovered that through their own sampling that our disinfection byproducts are really above the contract level.
Well, I noticed in the materials provided in the action form, it said that the contract the town entered years ago with the county required a lower level of disinfection byproduct. So we were able to get by for a number of years without changing chemicals. How did we get by that?
Yeah, well, since we found the problem, we have been really analyzing some of our data, historical data, and since January of 2011, it looks like all of our levels, including ours, including Smithfield's, are starting to escalate, starting to climb. So probably in a year, maybe 2 years, this would have come up, even without the county's issue. We would have had to address this later on. It just happened that it came up this year.
I don't think the county was aware, and we weren't either, that the level and the chemical was not meeting the county contract requirement. I don't think anybody knew until the August time frame.
They were not. In fact, they're again, because everyone is uncomfortable with these new EPA regulations, they're sampling everywhere. They want to know what's going on with their system, and they found this.
Earl, is it because the number has changed for the sampling, or is it because the river has changed with this intake, or what's changed?
Probably what I would think, this is just my opinion, there are probably more organics in the river now than what there were. We do know there's more sand in the river just due to the development and things are happening upriver. When we pull from the river, and we're pretty much at its mercy, it's what happens upstream is what has a big impact on what we do. And if development is causing more organics in the water, then we just have to deal with it. And a lot of cities have already gone from alum to this ferric sulfate just because.
Was the county testing though? If we've been selling water to the county and the contract required a higher level of disinfection, were they testing, or was alum working, or is it just something that nobody paid attention to?
Well, that was the sites that when they sampled there at the point where we deliver water to them, they had historically had not sampled there, nor had we. But just to monitor that more closely, we're going to do it. Sampling.
They're not sampling, they were not sampling at that particular
At that point, yes.
You can test the water supply at another point and it may be fine, right? But that's where it's delivered to them, therefore it was higher. What was the number?
I don't recall. It was pretty close to the 80 or maybe even above it. It was at a pretty high level.
Because it says the contract says no higher than 90%.
90%.
So was it higher than 90% or
yes.
not?
Yes, it was higher at those 2 points. It was higher than the 90% level. Yes, and we did go back and sample it just to verify that, make sure there wasn't any mistakes made. We did go back and we sampled those frequently. Yeah, we've done a lot of sampling of our system, and just to track things so we can solve this little problem.
Earl, if we didn't have a contract with the county, would we have to haul sludge?
We would have to process sludge. Yes, if we weren't serving the county, then our little sludge system it would do status quo. I mean, our system was put in in the late 80s, early 90s, whenever it was, and it was at the time it was very adequate. And if we weren't serving the county, or if this issue hadn't come up, we could still labor along. But one of the problems we've had this year is with the sludge system. Since early spring, that system has been down for 3.5 months at various times. And whenever this little issue came up, every basin we had was full of sludge. Our 3 sedimentation basins were full because we had nowhere to put them because our system was down and we couldn't process sludge. So we actually had to have a hauler come in and haul it away, but just because we couldn't process it. And the way our system is, we have 3 basins in our plant, and when we clean a basin, it takes almost a full 30 days to process that one basin. So in essence, the best we can get is a basin every 3 months with what we have now, and that gets it done where you don't have a problem. But it's with these THMs and HIA levels, disinfection byproducts, such an issue now. Clean basins is one of the first line of defense.
When I read this, and maybe I'm not understanding this, but it says estimated annual cost for hauling with sludge currently is approximately $270,000, and the new chemical to be used because of this problem, the hauling process estimated additional cost is $320,000. That's $590,000. And if you look at $53,800 a month that we're garnishing off the county, and multiply that by 12 months, that's $645,000. We're not making but about, if those numbers are correct, based on what I see, we're not making but about $55,000. And, then you start throwing manpower and some other things into that. I question whether we're making any money.
Well, if you look at it as strictly this being a wholesale water cost, we probably wouldn't be, Councilman Perry, but eventually, in next year or the year after, we're going to have to address it for ourselves anyway. So we will have to change our processes, if not this year, maybe in the next couple of years, just for our own customers. So to me, it's not just a Johnston County issue. It is at this immediate, at this moment, but a couple of years down the road, it's going to be, we're going to have to do something ourselves.
Mr. Harris, I want to make sure, I think I've got the numbers here. I think it's the total numbers is estimated at about 320, not 320 plus 270. It's a little confusing there. What it's saying is the hauling is approximately 270, but that includes all the other processing plus the extra. I think it's 53,000 roughly.
It says the estimated additional annual cost. Additional cost is 320, but you're telling me that it's going to go from 270 to 320?
No, that's just part of the 320. The 270 is the estimated annual cost for hauling the sludge is $270, but including the new chemical to be used, the hauling process and related engineering, lab tests, approximately $10,000 a year, the total amount for the year would be $320. So there's about a $53,000 on top of that $270. That's a little confusing there. But instead of $320, $270, so it's still, I mean, it's still a lot of money, but it's not. Yeah.
The total amount is $320.
That's right.
Yes, that's correct.
And I do want to
a little different story then.
Yeah.
And I do want to caution everyone, we have no history using this chemical in Smithfield. What we have done, we've talked with our engineers, we've talked with the consultants, and we've got a good estimate, what we feel is confident, but we have no history as to what it will actually be. It could be more than that, it could be less than that. Hopefully it will be less. And come budget time, we will have a better idea as to what it is. But we spend a lot of time crunching numbers, Ray and I have, and we have spent massive hours on this. And sometimes the numbers we get are all over the board. But this is our best estimate. I can't guarantee you that's what it'll be. But once we get some history on the use of this chemical in sludge, then we do a lot better job of budgeting.
If you look down under budget result, it clearly says there, if the above stated approach is approved by the council, the anticipated budget consequences for this year would be approximately $320,000 in additional expenses to the water plant.
That's right.
So, are you telling me that's actually going to be $50,000 in additional expenses?
No, 320 is the total impact to this year's budget as estimated, and that includes all the hauling, the chemical, the difference in the chemical. We're already using some chemicals. That's trying to factor in everything, but it's a net gain of an estimated 320,000. So no additional 270. That includes all hauling, treatment, engineering, lineup, and again as itemized by.
Page 143 breaks it down.
So,
It's 320. You got it, Mr. Harris?
no. Yeah, I see it.
He's working on it.
Well, you understand why I had to ask. I mean, if you read this is additional costs of $320,000.
Well, you got the new chemical treatments, 50, and the potential hauling expense, 270,
Oh, no, well,
and that equals 320.
we're already,
Their best
That's
estimate,
correct.
their guesstimates.
Any further discussion?
so let me,
Could be less.
I'm dense, but, so we're not paying anything to haul sludge right now?
Yes, they do.
Yes,
But it's
we did.
minimal.
Yeah, because we had to empty our sludge basins. They were full. We had our sludge system was down, so we have paid to haul sludge. That was an emergency thing we had to do this year.
Okay.
Is this a short-term solution we're talking about right now?
Well, we're going to look at all of our options, Councilman Harris. We're going to look at a long-term. We're going to see if maybe it's more cost-effective to put in a different sludge processing system. We have already called around. They have belt presses and different dewatering, things. And if we went that route, then there may even be some grants that we could get to help offset that. But I'm sure we were probably looking at somewhere $1.5 million for a brand new sludge processing system, just off the top of my head.
But the action we're asking tonight is to consider it for us to move forward with this new treatment chemical to proceed forward at this time. Is that right? Mr.
Yes, sir.
Supervisor?
We're really just asking permission to proceed along these lines. And then hopefully if we have a month or two under our belt with it, we'll have a better idea of what the hauling cost is, the chemical cost, and we can come back with an actual budget amendment. We're really just looking for permission to proceed in this authority. And again, let you know that there will be some clear consequences to our budget. But right now, I don't know that we have really much of a choice. There's nothing we can do physically with the plant to increase the sludge treatment ability, and immediately we've got to just deal with it now, which really the only real solution is to haul it basically, and to get the water to the proper state to use the additional chemicals. I mean, we could go ahead and amend the budget if you're comfortable with it. We think we'll just have a better idea in probably 60 days, be able to bring back a little bit better number in terms of both the chemical and the hauling estimate.
That would be my recommendation to the council, is I would not amend the budget this time. I'd simply get some data to see where we're at and give him 60 days here to try this chemical and see what we got.
Well, we really don't need a motion then. We just sort of need a consensus to.
I'd like to have it in the form since we're doing it.
So Earl, the action requested is, I mean, it's exactly what the mayor is asking for.
So Earl, have you actually talked to other municipalities? Have you talked to their public works directors, except for just our engineering firm and the Wooten Company? Have you actually talked to them?
Not personally, but Ray has. He spent a lot of time on the phone talking with various others, and there have been several towns that have gone from Allen to Ferrick, and Raleigh, Wilson, Rocky Mount, Greensboro, and some others. Those are just the ones that are more familiar with me. And some of the ones who are hauling and doing a land application, like Harnett County, Dunn, LaGrange, North County, Rocky Mount.
What does Johnston County do?
They do some hauling. I think they have a press that they do
watering systems.
They do watering system. I think they have some like a two-step. Some of their stuff is hauled off.
How quickly, do you have any feel if we go with this new treatment, how quickly there will be back in business with the county?
We should be. In fact, the water temperature is dropping, and we've been doing a lot of flushing and everything. Some recent tests as of today, they were much lower. They were at the county's range. I sent Chandra Coates an email saying, that they are now at these 2 points. We have gotten them down below the 90%, and she said, great, thanks. And they really want the water. I mean, it's not like they do not want to take our water. They need it.
And that leads to another question. I know we have a contract with them, but have we explored the possibility of maybe partnering with the county to make some of these improvements to our system? We are a partner with them, though they're buying the water from us. We are providing a service to the county as well. Has that been looked at and explored to see if they may be interested, willing to share in some of the costs?
She expressed, that really sympathy to us because we were having so much problems that she felt somewhat guilty about causing it. But she said that the county would be more than willing to work with us in any way. She understands our situation. Once we get a handle on what it's going to take to like a new sludge system or something, I would think they would be very open to talking with us. They want to maintain this level of cooperation that now exists in Smithfield. You remember one time, many years ago, that cooperation between the county and the town wasn't necessarily there. But they're very interested in keeping that relationship, and I think they work with us as best they can.
Paul, I'd recommend that we follow up with that and just start those discussions.
And they have been very cooperative. Like I said, as soon as they can start buying, they want to start instantly buying it. And as Earl said recently, they did express an interest. I mean, again, until you know what the new plan or facility is going to be, they can't commit, but they expressed an interest in helping us.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
And just as far as for the record, I would ask that we do make a motion and vote on this, if it is such a significant situation, so that it does show unity in trying to fix this problem and work together. So if that's the way the council would like to proceed, I would ask that we entertain a motion.
I'll make such a motion.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Earl. And Mr. Manager, if you'll stay on top of that and get back with us as Councilman Moore has suggested, I think it's a good idea. Okay, item 6, update on the request for the Piedmont Natural Gas System. Mr. Manager?
Mayor, as you know, I've been meeting with Piedmont Gas about trying to enter the dialogue with regard to the request by the East Smithfield neighborhood. As previously identified, certain areas that were looking for help with connecting to natural gas, which does not exist in those neighborhoods. I met, since our last meeting, I met with a Mr. John Monahan, Senior. He's their governmental relations manager. I met with him following our last meeting. He was very helpful and helped initiate, again, another conversation with Piedmont Gas with regard to the survey. And you can see on page 148, after that meeting, I did get a response from Mr. Dale Norville. He's a Northeast Region Sales Supervisor for Piedmont Natural Gas. And Mr. Norville was the same person I met with first time before the last meeting about the survey, and he at that time expressed an interest in the survey, depending on what exactly the council was interested in doing. So after that meeting, I've got another meeting set up with Mr. Norville for this Monday, and he's going to bring with him his proposed survey, and also he wants to work through the survey along the conditions and the criteria that we discussed at our last meeting. You know, not just do you want natural gas at your own cost, but a little bit more detailed survey. And he thinks between the survey that they typically use or something along those lines, and also a cover letter with that survey, that he can get a more informed question presented to the residents, and hopefully a more informed answer from the residents on that. So I'm going to meet with him, and I hope at that time he'll present, you know, actual survey materials or, you know, adequate information, so that we're sure that the survey, the questions asked are along the lines that we've expressed an interest in, and the community has expressed an interest in that survey. Also, things I want to talk about are what's he going to do for people who work during the day, if they're only out there during the day. That is the evening survey. Will the mailers be complete if they're sent by mail, they're not actually talking to a representative? So those are things I hope to be able to work through on Monday at that meeting. And with that, that's really the update, Mayor. I would like permission to proceed if it looks acceptable, you know, with that survey. Certainly whenever I get something, whether it's in writing or otherwise, I'll bring it back as soon as possible. But if we can get it moving before that time, I'd rather go ahead and get the survey moving, and I'll do my best to get the survey along those lines. I think I have a good understanding as to what both the residents and the council is looking for in terms of the detail on that survey.
Do you need a motion or just?
We can do
fine with me.
I have a question.
Okay.
With that proposal, just for confirmation, Paul, they will be accompanied, this survey will be accompanied by a representative of East Smithfield, is that correct?
Not necessarily. I mean, that has not been determined yet. So
is the surveys being distributed by just mailers only?
I think their typical practice and what they did last time, this is about 2 years ago, they typically send some number, 7 or 8 representatives from Piedmont Gas, I guess as part of their regular staff. They'll go out and knock on doors or leave door hangers. I don't know what they mail and what they do, but they try to go to every door and knock on the door. So they're pretty personal with it. We're going to check on that and see, because I think part of the issue that came up with that last survey was that some people weren't home. They left door hangers. The door hangers weren't that informative. And then the information, even for the people who were at home when they knocked on the door, was a little bit one-sided in the sense of, do you want natural gas extended? And oh, by the way, you have to pay for it all. And that wasn't really the essence of the question we're trying to find an answer to. So that's what I'm going to talk about and find out if they can change those questions. I hope that they will still go out door to door, knock on the doors, give those residents a chance. If they leave a door hanger, it's got more information. And I think they will, but I don't know, I just can't say. I've heard different stories, whether they actually send a mailer out also just to cover anybody else who might be around. So I'm going to try to check and see if they'll do all 3 of those things. That would be what I'll try to make sure they do.
Yeah, I think that'd be more
okay.
effective in the area.
And I mean, I know there's been volunteers who said they'll go out there with them. I will certainly see if they'll accept that, if they'll be happy doing that. I don't know as a protocol they'll want to do that, but I'll try to talk them into it. I'll do my best and see if they'll encourage some help. They did say they would be more than happy to have some community meetings at the appropriate appropriate times to inform the residents about what the cost may be for your appliance conversion, that sort of thing. So they volunteered they would make that effort.
Okay. Paul, have you had any discussions with them about reestablishing a franchise agreement between us and them yet?
Yes, I did. I spoke with this representative, Mr. Monahan, about that. And I mean, subject to what our town attorney may weigh in, I believe the contemporary view on that is that the state law covers it. We can have a franchise agreement, but they don't really need one. We don't have to have one. If we do have one, then it would address kind of a notice requirements for a just digging the right of way, that sort of thing, which is also buttressed by the existing state law. So I think, I mean, I don't know, I've talked to Bob about it a couple of times. I think the issue is if we don't have one, we can demand one, but there's not much we can do in the meantime because they are awarded this area by the state. We'd have to go back, I think, to the Utility Commission and ask for the district to be re-awarded or reassigned to another company or something like that, and that's a pretty long process. So we can't ask just to negotiate a franchise agreement. I'm not sure what kind of bargaining power we're going to have. So it looks like we don't have to have one, and apparently many jurisdictions are now operating without one once these old ones expired.
Oh, getting back to the peoples that's coming, they have been coming and they've been doing surveys. They have been telling people really things that disencourage them from telling them that they would sign up for gas. Now we have a association of community activity, and I think these gas peoples with the mayor and you and the community should sit down with them, but they keep coming telling you one thing, and they have already told the community many things before. Over the past years. And so I think it's time for everyone to get together now and start talking one-on-one, but everybody hearing the same thing. Because now we keep running on hearing one thing, they saying they want to work with us, do all these things, yet and still, for the last 20 years, they have been giving us the runaround. So I think it's time for us all to come together now, the mayor, the manager, and the community, and we all sit down, and when we leave there, we know what each one is saying, and we don't have to go back.
Yes, sir. And I think I would hope when they have an informational meeting, we could have that forum and try to convey with the community present, what their intent is, and certainly address any questions the community may have. I think that'd be a great idea.
Any further discussion? By consensus, we move forward, Mr. Manager, I think, as council is saying, and keep us informed.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4, which is now item 7, been removed from consent agenda. The Parks and Recreation Department is seeking approval to hire a part-time fitness instructor and 2 lifeguards at the Smithfield Recreation Aquatic Center. Mr. Johnson, I recognize you at this time.
Okay, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory there. We need to hire or replace 2 part-time lifeguards that were, obviously a lot of these are high school kids and they're seasonal, and they may be from ones that we had this summer. They're leaving because they play football or soccer or whatever, and so we have to replace them to keep that level of service there.
Both positions are replacements. These are not.
Yeah, the lifeguards, yes. Yeah. The fitness instructor, I guess the simplest way to put that is we've had these 2 fitness instructors that have been with us probably since we opened, at least 2.5, 3 years. Their availability because of changes in life is less now, so if the 2 of them together were teaching 8 fitness classes during the week, now their availability is to teach 4 or 5, and so to keep that same level of service, we need to add an instructor. It's another person, but it doesn't affect the budget. I mean, it's not increasing the budget amount, it's just spreading those responsibilities out with one other person.
So budgetary funds will cover the additional person already budgeted.
Oh, yeah,
Without any amendments to your budget?
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Johnson? Thank you, Tim. Do I have a motion that we accept his proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Tim. Item 5, which has now become item 8, consideration of resolution number 535 for the approval of amendments to the municipal records and retention schedule.
Mayor, this is really just a recent change to the municipal records retention. Really just keeping up with the with requirements. Pretty standard item, and this resolution actually changes our existing record policy with the new policy.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, what do we change? You say actually change. We voted, I remember we voted to run the wrong on, we voted for this, being at the store to doing this, but what do we change now?
Let's see. Page 1. Yeah, I'm looking at the.
Mr. Kerrigan, do you have an answer to that
Do
question?
you have the line strike
I have it
through?
right here.
Okay, Shannon, either one?
Yeah, he's got. I think Mr. Kerrigan's got the strike through there.
Does that make sense? 61.
Tim, why don't you just address this and let us know what that is, if you will?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council. A couple of the ones in regards to the personnel records, that the accreditation records, several of these are parts of what would normally be in your personnel file. They're just in addition to that you can keep them in another location. So if you see the Medical Leave Act and the leave without pay, each of those are going into one file, which is a leave file. So that already exists. Those two are just combined, absorbed in it. The employee eligibility record, that is something new with immigration, that every employee that we have, we need to run through an e-verify system, and those records we have to keep on file. They just made changes to that recently, so that's why they're amending it now. And the accreditation records, that again remains in our personnel file. The personnel file, some of these that you see individually, those will be obsolete. You will no longer need them after 1 to 3 years, but the personnel file, we keep on for 30 years after termination.
That was the problem I was having. You're saying you destroyed it in 3 years, and, you know, you're saying you destroyed it in 3 years, and I was under the impression you had to keep it a longer time than that.
That's correct.
Some of these things probably need to bring up at winter meeting or something to try to understand why we are doing some of these things. It was just that you said we're going to vote to destroy these records now, and sometime when we have meetings, we start asking, referring back to what happened at such and such a time, and nobody knows because, you know, you don't have any records, and why you have the records if you destroy them in 1 or 2 years, certainly you're not going to have a record. But some of them is vital to our daily action, and somehow or another we need to be able to pull up what we need. And some of the things, just like you said, is obsolete, it would be too much to hold for.
That's right. If it's beyond its useful life, then it would be destroyed. But everything that we're talking about, anything that would be important, we would be keeping.
But I was just concerned about some of the viral records that we seem to be get set up in 3, sometimes 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we accept this proposal for the resolution.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. That should take care of, if I haven't missed anything on the agenda. As far as my report, Public Power Week is October the 6th through the 12th. I will be sending out a proclamation and recognizing that. So just keep that in mind. That's always a good event here at Town Hall. and we'll be recognizing that Public Power Week. We do have several events in our community. The AVA thing is going on, forget they got a name for it, Paul, what is it? AVA Strap?
Night of the Iguana.
What was that? Ava Gardner Festival. Yeah, I thought it was something different than that.
Night of the Iguana.
Night of the Iguana, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
All right, that's going on also in the next week or so. We've got the holiday band and some other things going on tonight, even as we're meeting tonight. So we've got a lot of activity in our community. Earlier tonight in our consent agenda, we approved the school bond issue or supported that. I've been talking a lot with Dr. Kroom and some of the staff there about how Smithfield could make a better presence, this council, in presentations to our local schools. I would encourage each of us to partner with that, and if they've got special events, try to make at least support the events that's going on, to let people know, like the new IB program, some other things we have for our schools, and I think it would be well received. I can't think of anything else other than we're meeting with Electric Cities on October the 7th to discuss some potential changes there, or at least some ideas, hopefully. Benson is coming over to be with us and talk with them, as well as Selma. So that will come up October the 7th.
Is the council invited to that?
You're welcome to come to that, but that will be, what, I don't remember the time or whatever.
With Electric Cities?
Yeah.
I think it's at 11 o'clock in the conference room.
In the conference room at 11 o'clock. If you would like to come, feel free to come.
Mr. Harris will be there.
Okay. But Graham Edwards, the CEO, will be here to be able to talk to us. Okay. Does the council have any comments tonight?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
At the last meeting, I think I requested that the town manager make some amendments to his compensatory time law that he kept on employees. And since then, I think the town attorney has done some research and followed up along with the town manager on his findings on compensatory time for employees. With that said, I'd like to make a recommendation in the form of a motion that effective immediately to eliminate compensatory time to the classified exempt employees as listed in the town employee handbook. And also to allow a flex work schedule as listed in the employee handbook and specifically recorded as requested previously to be utilized by the exempt and non-exempt employees when they earn it within 30 days of occurrence. And I have this in written form for the town clerk because I know it sort of sounds confusing. In other words, they use their flex time that they earn. The time that they earn, instead of it being comp time, be flex time. They earn and use that within 30 days. Also, all presently earned compensatory time that's been earned by these employees, I'd like that to be utilized by the end of the fiscal year and not have that roll over to the next fiscal year, if possible. And lastly, I'd like to ask the town manager and the town clerk to write these proposed changes accordingly and to present this to the council for review and prior to amending the town employees handbook to reflect the same. The reason for this is not to punish the employees, but is to eliminate excessive accumulation of compensatory time leave usage instead of using earned vacation leave, and to assure accountability and productivity of our hired employees on paid time during normal business hours. And that is in the form of a motion.
Okay.
I second that motion.
All right, discussion?
What's the difference between comp time and flex time?
Comp time, it's sort of similar. Comp time, you can pretty much, depending on the policies of the town, you can use it anytime you want to. Based upon our town's employee handbook, you know, it's pretty much the same. You can flex your time. In other words, I can earn my comp time and can use it and wait and use it 2 months from now With flex time, I can earn it now, and I have to flex, I will come in later the next day. If I earn 3 hours tonight, then I come in 3 hours later the next day. That is the difference in flex time. I'm flexing my work hours the following day. I'm not banking it and using it 2 months from now.
You've got to be using it within that day.
No, sir.
30 days.
You use it within 30 days. According to your definition, it can be utilized within a reasonable time based upon your definition, and I'd like to place it 30 days.
And you have that in written form?
I do.
For them?
Well, here, I mean, I view flex time as, let's say, you got, and I'll use, Tim, I'm gonna pick on a Parks and Rec, okay? Let's say you got an employee who has a lot of athletic events from 12 noon till 9 at night. And the flex time would allow his schedule to be from 12 noon to 9 at night, as opposed to coming in at 8 to 9 and banking comp time. Does that make sense?
Right. That's how I understand flex time.
That's correct.
Now, the only question I would have at that point, just a general discussion, was if he had any events during that morning that would be something he'd have to attend. Are we saying someone else would have to cover that event, or, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how, are we going to increase productivity, or are we going to harm productivity?
Well, he would have 30 days. He wouldn't have to
do it the next day.
He would have 30 days to use it within that month.
Okay.
If he had another meeting, then he would come to that meeting. It wouldn't reduce his productivity.
Well, I've always
Just
used,
flex his work schedule.
exempt employees aren't limited to 40 hours a week. They work till they get the job done.
Yeah.
It's just part of the nature of the job.
Okay. Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second.
I realize we have a motion and a second, but I have a hard time voting to change the employee handbook in such a way without having to be able to review the written motion or any of the other supporting facts other than what Town Attorney Mr. Spence emailed out a couple of weeks ago. I would ask that we table this and have an action item in next month's agenda.
The town attorney would like to see it too, especially with exempt employee information. Because I know what exempt employees will look like hourly employees. So I would like to see the written form. Because exempt employees treated like an hourly employee, you create problems.
I have no problem with that, man.
Okay. So would you, you're rescinding your motion then, Councilman Williams? At this point, to table it for 30 days to see the written motion for the council to review it?
Yes, sir. That is correct. We can amend it to see it. And I think I stated that in my proposal, my motion.
So Councilman Williams is going to work with the town attorney and the city manager to bring this back to us at the next meeting.
That's correct. To be submitted to the council prior to the next meeting for review.
For us to review, to discuss it.
That's correct.
Right.
That being said, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Anything else on Councilman comments?
Mr. Mayor, I just have an update on the Economic Development Committee. Real fast, I'll make it very brief. We did meet Councilman Harris and Councilman Williams, and the city manager met along with the town clerk, and we just basically had a brainstorming meeting. Paul had brought us some information that we had requested as far as the makeup of other economic development committees around the state, what other municipalities are doing. So we reviewed that information. We reviewed the league's survey on economic development. We also took a look at and are reviewing our Smithfield's economic development plan, which was done in 2004. So one item that we have asked Paul to do, not committing any funds or anything at this time, is to contact the individuals who did our economic development plan back in 2004 and kind of, yes, and look at that, and hopefully we'll be able to put a meeting together so we can meet with him. So just wanted to give you an update on that. Anything else?
Any other council wish to be heard? All right, Mr. Manager, you got a brief report?
Yes, sir, very brief. Just to follow up on Mr. Moore's comment, I have contacted that individual, and I think we have a confirmation. He's going to confirm. He thought he had a meeting that day, but he thought he could be here at that evening, which was, I don't remember the date. I think it was a week from a week from today, I think. I know it's before Mr. Harris goes out of town. So right now, I think we're set for 6 o'clock on Tuesday. He's going to confirm, but so far he looks like he's good. Okay. He said if he couldn't make it, he might send another person from his firm, but he wanted to be here if at all possible. So I think we're going to be good with that, just to let you know. As Mr. Moore said, I thought it was a good meeting. There was lots of information out there to review, and so I think it's a good start. So hopefully we can have some more good meetings and kind of get off to get a new movement going forward there. A few other quick updates on the Smithfield Crossings project. We had our monthly staff meeting today with the contractor, and probably the biggest fact, they're moving along actually very well now. Lots of activity still moving forward. They still are very hopeful to have their portion of the project completed by early December. The DOT, if you remember, there's the Project A or Portion A and Portion B of the project. The one that's in the works now, what we call the Portion B, the industrial Park Drive area, and then the new roads behind the restaurants. That's moving along very quickly. The Portion A, which is the ramp completion, part of 70, and then the roundabout area, that is presently being rebid right now by DOT. I think there's a return date of either later this week or next Tuesday. The bids will be coming in, and a start date hopefully sometime in mid-November on that portion. So that's primarily resurfacing on that ramp and that portion of 70. So don't know the time frame on that, how long that will take. I think it's a 60-day, we think a 60-day completion on that. So they'll probably be pushing into early next year to complete that part of the project, but that remains to be seen. So again, it does seem like it is finally coming to an end, and we hope to keep it moving. So good progress there. In terms of the rerouting for that project, it's been a little bit delayed, unfortunately. We're hoping to have that rerouted by the middle of September. That obviously has not happened yet. Right now, as of today, the date that we're looking at is Tuesday, October 16th. Again, that's tentative date. That's coming up pretty soon. That would be a Tuesday. They would probably reroute it about mid-morning, let traffic get in that day, and reroute that road away from the turn-in on Industrial Drive to the new entrance by the Hess station. Actually, you will be able to use the existing Industrial Drive if you're coming from the ramp or from the east side down 70. It will still be accessible, at least for a portion of that project, to get in on that way. If you're coming from Smithfield or the community college side, you'll be forced to go into the new entrance by the Hess station. Hopefully that'll be clear with the signage, and it won't be too confusing. I'm sure there'll be some confusing days here and there. We'll try to keep an eye on it. It's my goal, once we get that October 16th date firmed, to really put the word out as much as possible for that 2 or 3 days firm notice that we have. The Chamber's agreed to get it on their website and help us get the word out as soon as possible, just so the business owners in that area can work with their customers and also their employees to make sure the confusion is reduced as much as possible. Another project, the water reuse line installation project. I think I reported in my last weekly report that is essentially complete. Lenny's finally got the contractor, the county contractor, to complete most of their work. A little bit of cleanup work still going on, but that pavement is essentially complete. So finally that project is coming to an end. Still a little choppy in the patching, that sort of thing, but so far so good. A few more probably last second inspections will take place, but it did manage to meet the compaction requirements earlier last week and the week before that. So the base looked like it was going to hold up and be a good patch job on that. So You've got my report. There's a few other items in there. If you have any questions, please let me know. Mayor, that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, I had just one more comment.
Sure.
I apologize, but I did want to publicly say this. I had a business owner come up to me a couple of weeks ago, and he was very, very complimentary. He'd had some meetings at Town Hall with our HR director, Tim, and he was very complimentary of his professionalism, his timeliness, the information that he provided to him, and he just went on and on about Tim, and I just want to publicly say thank you, because it made me proud to hear that of our outstanding employee. So good work, Tim.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not, entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion second, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Right over there waiting. The problem is, I got one side that won't matter.